Introducing Books with Bridgetti, a lineup of industry experts, award-winning authors, and talented indie authors. Books with Bridgetti, only on 100 TV.
Becoming an author can open up incredible doors and opportunities for you. But what if things don't quite work out as planned? Today we're going to be joined by the incredible Mary Elizabeth Jackson. She's a passionate author and a certified special needs and disability advocate. Now, her journey as an author has been marked by some incredible forms of resilience and determination. She's overcome many obstacles as an author. So join us for some inspiration in this episode of Books with Bridgetti. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Introducing Books with Bridgetti, a lineup of industry experts, award-winning authors, and talented indie authors. Books with Bridgetti, only on 100 TV.
Can everybody see that? Coinbase all that is
Hey, Christoph Trapp, thanks for having me on your live show. It was really my pleasure. Your production is just fantastic. Unbelievable how you guys are pulling that off. So organized with segments and transitions and all those different things. Right in line with what I'm talking about in my new book, Going Live. Live stream your podcast to reach more people. Hopefully people tune in for our conversations. Definitely worth the on-demand version, in my opinion, if I may say so myself. You guys are awesome.
I think this might be, I've been on over 24 different podcasts and radio shows in the last couple of months. And this has to be one of the most sophisticated, what the kids that I used to teach call bomb.com shows and presentations that I've ever been on. It looks fantastic. Thank you.
I love your introduction. How professional. That sounds, I feel like I'm on a beautiful show here. Folks, welcome.
Available wherever great books are sold near you.
Oh my goodness, Ross, thank you so much.
Thanks. And, this is one of the most fun interviews that I've ever done. So thank you, Bridgetti.
Big pleasure. Ross, take care.
Thank you.
If you're just joining us, welcome to Books with Bridgetti. I'm your host, Bridgetti Lim Banda from Cape Town in South Africa. Join us as we delve into the world of books and writing, where publishers and authors share their insights and behind-the-scenes secrets. Our live stream is made possible by StreamYard, BeLive Media, only on 100 TV. And today we're going to be talking to the amazing Mary Elizabeth Jackson. She is a passionate author and certified special needs and disabilities advocate who draws on her own experience as a mother of 3, including 2 on the spectrum. As the owner of Enel Publishing and manager of Sisters J Music, she's committed to amplifying underrepresented voices. Mary's also a podcaster, live streamer, speaker, educator, ghostwriter, and songwriter. So without any further ado, let's give her a warm welcome onto our show, Books with Bridgetti, only on 100 TV. Mary, welcome to the show. It is always great to be able to talk to you, and so nice to be able to sit on the other side of the desk and have you as a guest on Books with Bridgetti today. Now, I always say to people, you know, to be able to become an author is one of the best things out there, because it becomes your business card, and it just opens up so many doors for people. So I'm going to start right at the beginning. You've got a lot to share. What inspired you to get started as an author in the first place?
Hey, Bridgetti, thank you so much for having me on. I love the intro and seeing so many familiar faces and folks that I've never seen before, but it's wonderful. So my journey began about 2013, and it was after the birth of my late in life son. And it was a hard end of the birth, coming to the world, not sure if he was going to make it. And then my recovery was very challenging. So about 5 months after he was born, I was sitting there and I was nursing him, and I was sitting in just kind of prayer and gratitude for him being alive and me being alive. And in that moment, and this is really how it happened, in that moment, there was a download, of this beautiful little story for babies. And I was like, wow, that's really cute. Now I've written poets, one of my main loves, and wanted to be a published author, but wasn't even in the place in that moment in my life actually to do anything, right? I'm 45 years old, a newborn baby that has challenges, and trying to recover at that age from a C-section. So you can imagine it was the furthest thing from my mind. And so that story came to me, and I wrote it down immediately, and I thought, oh, that's so precious. Maybe the words came to me, poolicious, right? And perfectly and precious and perfectly made. And all these words came along with the story. And I thought, well, I'll keep this for my children. And so I sat on it for about 2 years, and I kept feeling like somebody was doing this on my shoulder. You got to do something with this. You lady, you need to do something with this. And so one day I just kind of said, fine. I didn't know what to do. And so really, my son for being one of the big inspirations, and my daughters as well, and for God for that download that came, because as a writer and an author, we're really, as a creator of any kind, we're kind of these channels for that expression to flow through. And so that's how it showed up. And I finally surrendered to that nudging that kept happening. And I went to someone, but I was very naive at that time, and he was academically published. So I just assumed that he would know what I needed to do, because I really had no idea. And when you're on the outside of the writing author world, it feels like publishers, publications, writing in that world is kind of, it's behind the scenes. It's really hard to get into. Like, how do you get in there, And so I went to the gentleman, asked him, can you look at what I wrote? And he was like, huh? It's because he was an academically published person, not a children's author. But he said, I want to introduce you to somebody who I think you guys would really connect. And I really had no idea what was going to happen in that moment. But I do know what happens when you surrender to God or the universe or the higher power or whatever's in your life to do what you are intended to do. And I was introduced to Thornton Klein, who is a human being and friend. And he's a friend to both you and I. And he looked at all the things I had written at that time. And it's funny because once that download happened when I was nursing, I couldn't stop writing. Like, they just kept coming and coming and coming. And so I used my audio recorder on my phone, because you remember, my baby's newborn. And so I'm trying to get sleep. You remember those days, right? In a fog. And so I had a notebook, and I still use these things to this day, but everything I wrote at that time came in rhyming for some reason. It was really weird. I was like, what is happening to me? And I showed everything that I had to Thornton, and he hyper fixated on perfectly precious poolicious. And that's what I wrote that day with Carson nursing. And then just the door started opening from there. And, he said, can I write 10 songs? And I was like, sure. I'd never even considered that. And he wrote them in like 3 days. And I remember the day he brought them over to the house and jumped on my keyboard. And actually, my little guy at that time was about 18 months old. So we were having in-home services at that time for him. And the therapist was here. And we were sitting in the living room, and Thornton was on the keyboard just playing these 10 gorgeous songs that I began crying. And I'm going to cry right now because they matched what I was going for, the innocence, the sweetness, the perfection of a baby, you know. And then the art teacher at my daughter's school, I said, "Hey, Alice, what do you think about drawing some pictures for me?" And she was like, "Sure." And then I think that was 2016. And I think by August we had a contract. It took us about 4 months to get a contract with in Texas. And then we released February 9th of 2017. And then 3 months later, won a Gold Maxi Literary Award for the combination of the music and the story and the illustrations, which was such an honor to win that. And then it's kind of been, it's been moving on since then. So it's beautiful the way it started. It hasn't always been beautiful though.
Wow, that is such an amazing story. I think a lot of mothers out there can relate to that. And the fact that you mulled over this for 2 years, how you met Thornton, how you met Alice, and it was almost as if things just aligned at the right time for you, because sometimes people sit on a story for years and years and years and years. But things worked out for you in a period of almost 2 years, you said, and things just aligned in the right way, and you got published and you got an award for that book. That is huge. That's absolutely huge. There are very few authors who, right in the beginning of their career, get that kind of acknowledgement. Tell us a little bit about the actual award.
It's very special because the Gold Literary Maxi Award, now they do have gold, silver, and bronze like most awards do, but it was created by a couple, and their child, the award itself has a child in a wheelchair. So since I'm a disabilities advocate, that even made it more special, to me it did. But their child never lived past the age of 6. If I remember correctly, not able to read and write. So they made this award in honor of their child. And so it just made it so special. And so from that award, BookBub picked it up and did a giveaway with it, which, that doesn't happen always for authors. And so they gave away 10,000 copies, I think, in like a day or two, which was super exciting as well. And plans to kind of follow my little guy, but the way the publishing world works, any of you out there know, it can take a long time for books to get published and to find someone to publish if you want to go the traditional route. So it kind of, the last one we did ends about 2nd grade. It's like kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade. And so now my little guy's getting ready to go into 5th. So there's, always material. There's never a lack of material that I'm provided with kind of on a daily basis. But it's really fun to be in the world of a child, I think. Some days I think it's more fun than the adult world because of the wonder that's still there and the innocence and the beauty that revolves in that world that exists. Our world is a little too serious as a grown-up most days.
Absolutely. So at what point did you decide that Prolicious wouldn't be a standalone book and that it would be a series? Did you plan it that way initially?
Yes, we did. That it would follow kind of his growth. We were looking from a marketing standpoint. I learned early on, and some of that was instinctive from being a business and an entrepreneur before being an author, thinking about, nobody really said that's presentable and an appetite for a publisher would be to have a series that's planned, because at the end of the day, we are a dollar sign. And kind of when you go into the writing world as an author, you know, you need to just realize that it's more than just about your creative work. If you are going to be partnering up and working with other individuals, collaborating, or, you know, getting with a traditional publisher, how are you getting them money? That's what they want to know. And, you know, I hate to put it like that, but it really is sort of the bare bones of what it's like. And so if you can kind of go into things knowing that, then how do you make yourself look that marketable? You know, if you're a life coach, how do you make yourself look, you know, appeasing to people that will want to work with you? So it just kind of all follows that same line of thinking and everything. We wrote the second one. The second one was published the same year as at the end of 2017, and then the third one didn't come. It didn't even come out until 2021 or 2022. No, 2021 or 2022. I can't remember exactly. I need to go back and look at the dates. And that's just because part of my journey. It would have been published a lot sooner, but there were things that happened. I published her for 2 years, and then we parted ways. Part of it was ethical reasons, and there were quite a few other authors that left as well. And then I was looking for a publisher for a while, considering self-publishing. A friend of mine was in the publishing business and said, that was my first publisher.
Bump in the road as a,
yes.
As an author. So we're going to take a very quick break because I really want to segment this and then focus on the difficulties that an author can, because your entry was fairly easy. But at that point, you started on your first hurdle as an author. So we'll take a very quick break and then we'll focus on some of the difficulties. Now, you've experienced difficulties that most authors don't, but I think sharing your story is important because it gives people a heads up of what are some of the things that can go wrong in your journey as an author, and, you know, what are the tools that you can use to push through. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. You are watching Books with Bridgetti, a lineup of industry experts, award-winning authors, and talented indie authors, only on 100 TV. Books.
I can't hear you.
We had some technical difficulties there, but we're back online. Welcome back. We're watching Books with Bridgetti, and my amazing guest is Mary Elizabeth Jackson. So today we're talking about not only an amazing author journey, but what are some of the challenges one can experience. So we were talking about the Pulicious series and how you got started as an author, but then you got stuck. So can you tell us, you know, again, what happened there, and how you dealt with it?
Right. That was around June 2019. And, you know, that was really hard because I felt homeless. That's probably, you know, but it was a decision that was made, and it was the right decision to make for myself in the direction I was going, the integrity of what I'm trying to do in this world or in my life. And so I walked away from that, and series. And so then I was like, okay, now what do I do? Because there had been the okay from the publisher. Yes, I'm going to do this 8-book series. And then, just like I said, I walked away from just unethical. Anyways, so then there was that long period of time. What am I going to do? And talking to people and trying to figure things out. And then before, I guess it wasn't several months later that a friend of mine was in the publishing business and said, you know what, let me publish these books for you. Well, I was like, okay, that's exciting, because I knew that I needed to get them back out there. And I didn't know that if I wanted to go self-publishing, but she was like, no, let me just do this. Let's just do this. So we did. And so, and of course you have to get the files back. You have to get copyrights back. And then the files had to work through all of that, because she has to redo everything, because one thing is you have to have a new ISBN number issued, which, if anyone out there doesn't know what that is, that's sort of like the driver's license, the self-identity of a book, the registration number for your book. And then, they also have to put their logo on the book, put their layout, whatever they have to change, quite a bit of a process. Well, then we're jumping into 2020, and all of us, the creative world, business world, life period, we know how crazy all of that got. So right about the early part of March was launching. We had put up the Poolicious books, and they had just come out. And it was right at the time when we had a tornado come through Nashville that did a lot of damage. Everything shut down. And so she had gotten into, had some trouble with Amazon, and she decided to quit. She couldn't do this. And I was like, what? Because the books were up. And then I had people messaging me, hey, I went to buy the book. I can't get the book. What's happening? And so I was like, I can't even believe this is happening right now. I mean, it really just was an unbelievable situation to be in, because not only do we know the world whole, we're going to shut down and lock down, and it was kind of chaos for everyone. And then this happened with this publisher. It was just like, it was very surreal. In the moment, it was like, you've got to be kidding me. I don't understand. You can't quit. People don't quit like this. And so I was very angry, and upset about it, as you can imagine. So everything came down. Normally there's a 90-day with a publisher, a 90-day grace period there for pulling things down, for royalties coming in, like that notification kind of thing. But it was immediate. So, and I understand now, it was a very traumatic time for a lot of folks. And so you go through 2020, and a lot of us authors are having to learn how to pivot into a world. And I ended up being in several anthologies. So those were books that I could push during that time. We did a lot of stuff online, and that helped to have that presence continue. So I was in the journey of looking for another publisher. And through the publicist I had at that time, he introduced me to my second publisher. Well, I guess, technically, with Tuscany Bay Books, Jim Christina. And that was a really beautiful relationship. And he got all 4 of my books up, because we have a middle grade reader as well. So we got the Poolicious books back up, new ISBN numbers, new launches, new releases, all of that fun stuff. And lots of advertising around it, and things really very exciting.
Sorry, Mary,
and I had a great relationship.
That's what you said was a really important point there, because I think people may not quite understand that when you go to a new publisher or publicist, you have to get new ISBN numbers, and things have to change. So it's not just a matter of you can continue with what you had before. Things have to come down, and there's a whole new process in place. And that's challenging, because it interrupts your flow. It interrupts your sales. And I think people need to be aware of that. It's not just sign on the dotted line and we continue as before. That was something new for me that I wasn't aware of myself. you know, that an ISBN number is unique to that relationship with your publicist. And that, you know, and tell me, does that affect your cover design? Do you have to reword things? You know, what else is involved?
Yes, and that is and let's clarify publisher, not publicist, because a publicist doesn't have anything to do with the ISBN number. So yeah, I know those words are so close, aren't they? So if you go from traditional publishing to self-publishing and you do it yourself, you're going to have to get a new ISBN number. Every time a book is published, whether it changes hands or however it changes hands, you do have to get that new ISBN number. Now, if you have the copyright, if you own the copyrights to the font, to the page layouts, to the way the book, then you can carry that on, except for the fact that, you know, they're going to have to take off the logo of the prior publisher and put on their logo and trademark, things like that. But, you know, most of the time the publisher has their own idea of how they want the layout, so they're going to change it. Now, through the journey I've been on, the cover has stayed the same. And I think it's going to stay the same right now with my publisher presently. Complete overhaul, and the jacket will be completely different, and the layout in the book will look different as well. So it is a journey, and it is the right of the publisher, you know, especially if you don't own the copyrights, then you do have to change everything about it. So there's a lot that goes into all this that, like you said, a lot of people don't really realize, and unless you have to go through it, you just.
Now, there definitely are a lot of challenges that people are not aware of, you know, and obviously costs, because you've incurred an expense to have that publisher, and now when you're switching publishers, it's a whole new expense and new contracts.
Yeah.
You know,
right, and it depends on how that works. That stuff.
And every publisher would be different, you know. And talking about switching publishers, are there any loopholes that people need to be aware of? You know, because you've learned a lot of lessons. Are there any loopholes in the contract that you would now look out for, that you would like to tell people about?
Well, that conversation would pertain to my middle daughter, who we are in the process of shopping her book right now, and there are a lot of different kinds of publishing houses out there now. You have more just traditional. So what I would say is, when you're shopping, if you are going to pay money up front for a vanity press publishing house to publish your book, then that's not a traditional publisher. And in my journey of looking for a publisher, I have met all kinds of publishers, some that I didn't even realize that this niche existed. And it was very interesting to learn about a publishing company calling themselves traditional, but they were asking for money up front. Traditional, they are actually on the back end were connected to a traditional publishing house. So some of the bigger, you know, have a lot of presses underneath them, and there are some of these presses that do this. You know, it's $2,000 up front, or $5,000, or $10,000, and that covers the book cover and the layout and the editing and all of those things. So it's very important to do your research and know exactly about the company. You know, you can go, and I wish I could remember right now, and I'm so sorry, I didn't know we would talk about this exactly, but you know, you can Google these companies and then look at the reviews. You know, when you're looking to be published with someone, look and see what other authors are saying about their experience. with that publishing house. Now, if people have a bad experience with a publishing company, so you can find those reviews out there. And sometimes you can even contact that person, you know, through social media and say, hey, can I ask you a couple of questions about your experience? So you really do have to look out for yourself. You know, my daughter was offered a contract under a larger publishing company. And by the time the contract came, it was a different publishing house that's underneath, or press underneath that house. And they were wanting money up front. And I was out and did some deeper research to find information that was very, well, just not really flattering. So we declined the offer for her. And, you know, people want to get published, and sometimes they feel desperate and think, once I get my book published, it's gonna make me somebody, or like you said, it's a business card, and it is. But you know, and I've talked to people who spent $10,000 with someone and they didn't get what they needed, and their book looks terrible, you know? And so you really do have to watch everything and look out for yourself, and don't take things at face value. And a good thing to do is, if you know somebody who's in the business, in the writing world, do they know somebody who's reputable? You know, you and I both know, and he is a really good literary agent, and I trust him. And so I've now connected him with somebody who is going to be writing, you know, the history of their life in the music world. And this literary agent's very interested in this. So that's going to be a really great relationship, you know, and I know that what needs to be done will get done, and it'll all be great. And the book's going to be fantastic. So you have to do your research and look for those red flags of, does somebody say they are somebody and then they want money up front? So, and if you're going to pay the money, then just know what you're getting into. I ghost wrote on a book last year, and she decided to take a contract with TBN, which is Trinity Broadcast Network. Now, part of the book had folks in the book of that foundation, of that network. So it was in her best interest to go with that publishing company, knowing she was paying X amount of dollars up front. And part of that was a marketing package of commercials and things like that. So I helped her by reading over her contract and knowing she went into that fully knowing what she was doing. And that's good. You need to know what you're doing. But, you know, when you're looking at a contract like you own the rights to the book, that if the contract ends with the publisher, those rights go back to you. You own the rights for the film and anything like that. If a book gets turned into a film, you want to own those rights. You don't want to be doing all the work and then the publisher that you've signed with gets a percentage of all the work you've done and they've done nothing. That too.
There's definitely a lot of loopholes that one needs to be aware of. You know, I often tell people, for example, if you're going to find a new doctor, don't find a doctor in the yellow pages.
Or on the street.
You've got to ask for references. You know, so with the publishers, in your experience, do they take offense if you ask them for references? You know, is it okay to do that?
You know, I've never asked them for references, but I've done my own research and talked to other authors who were published, you know, with them. Like we did that with my daughter in that research. And I had, in some of the communication, I had said, you know, that I'm old enough, but I wanted her to be protected because she's new in this business, and I know that you can be taken for granted in any kind of business, you know, at times. And so even putting that in there, you know, I'm her representative, and I've been with a traditional publisher for X amount of years, there was still some skirting around that this person did in questions that I asked. There was what's included. This is what we're going to do for you before we ever even saw there was a fee. So, that's a red flag for folks. You want to, if you're like me, you want to know exactly what it is that you're getting or getting yourself into. I don't want all the fluff. I don't want all the things on the outside. I want you to get straight to the point with me. And so I can make a decision right now because this is wasting my time.
Absolutely. And you've now had experience with more than one publisher. You've seen different kinds of contracts. You know which loopholes to look for. And the one thing that I've pulled out of your the conversation now is the importance of doing your homework. Go and research the publisher before you sign on the dotted line. And I think especially for a brand new author who's excited, and I mean, it is a very exciting thing to get published for the first time. And you may be tempted to go by just one recommendation. And so what I'm pulling out from what you're saying is try and get a couple of different references about the publisher. And it's not because all publishers are bad, because you've had some good experiences as well. You were talking about Jim Christina and how fabulously that worked out. But that was also something that became a roadblock for you. So we'll take a very quick break and what happened with Jim Christina. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching Books with Bridgetti, and my amazing guest for today is Mary Elizabeth Jackson. She has had some incredible experiences on her publishing journey, and we've talked about some of those difficulties, and especially with getting published. And Mary, you were pointing out some of the things that you need to look out for when choosing a publisher, reading over contracts, doing your homework, etc. But even when you've done that and you've met a fantastic publisher, which you found in Jim Christina, tell us what happened there.
Well, that one's a hard one. So we had a great friendship. Thornton Klein and I did, because he's my co-writer and buddy. Jim was like a father figure. He was somebody who I could bounce ideas off. I could pretty much catch him on the phone anytime I needed to. We text. He was very encouraging and always very, he was very honest about things. And if I came up with an idea, he'd go, "Yeah, let's do it," or "No, let's don't do it," But Father's Day last year, he died suddenly. And so that was so devastating because he was a friend, and I cared very much for him as a friend. He was just, like I said, a father figure. And it was really, that was hard because I was trying to celebrate Father's Day with my husband and I couldn't stop crying. And it just felt like this huge void in my. And so here we are, homeless again. And I say homeless because that's how it felt, And so then I took a break for a little while because it was just too much, and I needed to just go, okay, do I even want to be in this world again? Do I even want to be published? Do I even want to be an author anymore? I mean, this has not been an easy road. Place for a little while, and I turned my attention toward other things. I do have a friend publisher here in town. I actually he was very encouraging, and he said, you know, you don't need to sit out on this very long. You know, you have these books have been out for a while. People know who the books, you know, you need to get them right back up as soon as you can. And I know that was probably would have been the best thing to do, but I needed a break. It's not been an easy road out. So I took a break for a while and needed to focus on other things. And so I started interviewing publishers again, started talking to friends, started talking to people in the writing world. Hey, do you know anyone? So I had so many meetings in like a 4 or 5 month period that I almost couldn't even keep up with all the ones that I spoke to. And they were all very gracious to talk to me about the situation. It was not an easy. And you've got these 4 books that are now going to have to be republished again, you know, and so who wants to take that on? You know, there are bigger publishers who will take on things like that. But now we're getting into some really murky waters here. Okay. Because most publishers want a brand new book, something new, something fresh, you know? And so I happened to be talking.
Sorry, Mary, I just wanted to interrupt you there for a minute. You know, you were saying, because that's a very important point, and I just wanted to make sure we catch all those points there. You know, you were saying that publishers generally want brand new books, because here you were and you had 4 books that had been through more than one publisher, and now you were homeless and you needed to find someone. How did you sell yourself as someone that was now not a brand new, you know, you didn't have brand new books? How difficult was it to convince the publisher to take on your work?
I'd like to say I could give them the little sad kitty face or the puppy face. But, you know, now our middle grade reader had actually been published for the first time with Jim Christina. So it had me. So that one was still technically brand new. The other 3 were not. But you know, there were a lot of publishers I spoke to that were willing to take me on just from my history, from being in the business that long, from, you know, doing live streaming with authors and having that experience, you know, not being a newbie, they were willing to do all this. It was going to cost a fee, you know, to do all this. And I thought, well, do I want to spend my money with them, or do I want to just do it myself and just say, forget this, right? That would have been the easiest thing to do. But I was on the phone with a friend of mine who's a publisher, and we were talking about the whole situation. And she said, you know, let's set up a meeting with my partner and let's bring Thornton in and let's talk. And this was back last year when we began the conversations, but we didn't sign a contract with them until December, before Christmas. And I was very nervous about it because I thought, gosh, I don't know if I want to go through this again. I just can't take any more heartache and heartbreak and disappointment and just hurt, because your books are, for me at least, they're an extension of who I am. I mean, I gave birth to these, you know, they're not as valuable as your children, of course, but they're a part of you because your heart and soul is there, you know, and so I really prayed hard about it. And we met with Norns Triad Publications, and they were very, very excited about all the possibilities, and they really wanted to do this. And even as signing, I still had hesitation, not because of them, because they're absolutely amazing, but it was just the history of these books. It's like, maybe God and the universe is just saying, you're not supposed to do this anymore, you know? And I got that sense of peace about it, and am forever grateful for making the decision to sign with Norns Triad. They have been above and beyond what I ever imagined that could happen. Just the support that we have from them. You know, anytime I'm doing something, my publisher, they actually will put it out on all of their stuff, what they're doing. They include everything that I'm doing in what they're doing. They include our live any podcast, any articles, any special events, they advertise it as well, which is really kind. Now, with them, we're in the process of revamping everything and redoing. I think we're going to redo the covers. Everything's in process right now. It just takes a little while. And the middle grade reader actually had my daughter, who is been published as an illustrator. She is actually in college right now. She did the original cover for Cheers from Heaven, the middle grade reader. And so that decision was kind of challenging because Julie and Sahara really felt like we needed to come up with a totally different cover to sell that book more to the public, for it to be a bestseller. And so I absolutely love the cover they've come up with. So it went from digital artwork to a photograph. Stuff that are out there. And it says exactly what the book's about, because it has a child sitting there with a sign. I think she's got a sign that says, no bullying, don't bully me, something like that, because that's what the story is based about. So, when you pick up that cover, you know exactly what you're getting. And that's, that's a big marketing right there.
Absolutely. We want to switch gears a little bit. So not only are you an author of, you've written a couple of books, but you're also a ghostwriter and a songwriter. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, those two things I fell into. Those are not things that I went and said, hey, they aren't really, I didn't go in thinking this is what I'm going to do next. I actually ghostwriting literally, I want to say 3 years ago. So you have to look him up, Ken Abrahams. He's written over 100 autobiographies of famous people. He's an amazing gentleman, and he's a friend of mine. And he called me up one day and said, hey, I'm too busy. And this friend of mine from LA, they need somebody to work on a project. And I said, okay. He said, I think you can do it, because he mentors authors. So I've done some mentoring with him. He's just for so long, so he knows the business, and he works for one of the largest publishers in the world. And he lives the writer's life, very secluded. He makes a lot of money, those successful authors. And he works strictly on stories, true life stories of people. So that's how I fell into ghostwriting. So it went from that project with a gentleman. I think his story will be turned into a movie. So what had happened was been written about his true life story. And he's from North Carolina. It's a great story. And they didn't like the proposal. So they fired the gentleman who had written the original proposal, and then they hired me. And so I rewrote the entire proposal for his book. So for those of you out there, if you are looking, if you're going to go the route of trying to find a literary agent, you're going to have to do what's called a book proposal. And, if you're a traditional publisher, you can do just a query letter or a pitch. You don't have to do an entire proposal. An entire proposal is much lengthier. There's so much that goes into a book proposal. And you have to give a synopsis of each individual chapter of the book. So it takes quite a while to put together all of those things. So I got to learn how to do all that as well by going From there, I was hired by a pastor here locally who wanted her story told, but she wasn't sure about it. And because we were friends, she thought she'd ask me about it. And I said, well, I ghostwrite. And so I did her book, and it's turned out to be one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had, because Shanda's husband died before the book was finished, and her mother-in-law died. And her mother-in-law, along with her father-in-law, helped start the TBN and make it famous back in the 80s, which is Trinity Broadcast Network, which is the Christian network, a big one. And so some of these stories have never been told in public before. And so it was a real honor to be able to tell these stories in public. And I was actually at an event at her church recently, and there were several people who came up to ask me questions. I've read the book, you know, and they asked me questions about the stories. And I literally, I never really thought about it until Shanda said something at this event. She said, yes, this is the lady who had to take my mother-in-law's story from text message on my phone and turn it into chapters in a book. And I thought, wow, yeah, I really did have to do I really did have to do that.
Oh my goodness. Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
It's kind of crazy. You know, I just, all I knew was that I was driven to do this book for her. It's like God laid it on my heart and said, these stories have to be told out there. They are unthinkable stories of what women have been through. These women, 3 generations, you know, I mean, Edith was born dead. I mean, and her grandmother prayed the Holy Ghost of the breath of life in her, and the child started breathing again. I mean, oh my gosh, how many times has that happened to a person? You know, just stories like that, I just think are amazing. And she and her husband were very famous in the 80s and 90s as evangelists and missionaries. And you know, these stories need to be told because everyone has some sort of a challenge they face in their life at some point. And sometimes it doesn't look like what you think a challenge is going to be. But, you know, we have to know that it helps to know other people have overcome things, because that gives us hope that we can overcome challenges as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've gone from author to being a ghostwriter, and you're also a songwriter. Tell us a little bit about that. How did that happen?
Yes, that is super fun. That's a super fun part of my life. And both of my girls have been, and actually one of them's leaving right now to go pick up my little guy. So that's what the noise is. Sorry. But the girls have been singing probably for about between 7 to 10 years together. And they, their story starts back when they were 9, 10, 11, 12, and getting into musical theater and instrument playing and all those loves and learning to sing. And so about the time that Poolicious was published, we did the songs. They were in the back of the book. Well, my girls went into Thornton Studio and recorded the songs. And then when we started doing book events, they started singing in public. Now, they'd already been doing a lot of stuff before then, but they started singing the songs in public when we go to book events. So it made our book events at libraries a lot of fun, because we would bring the music in. We'd have live music. You know, the kids would sing along with us, you know, and it was a lot of fun. We really did have a good time before the pandemic happened. And but so from there, they started singing at different churches and different events, and they've been on TV and radio. And like when we would go do a radio interview or a TV interview, the girls would come along and then they would have them sing. And so it kind of just has all been, it's been building up for all these years. And then last summer, and actually 2 summers ago, Elizabeth, my oldest, and Thornton and I sat down and we wrote a song, and it's called Open When, OPENWHEN. And I say that because I'm spelling it because a lot of people think win is wind. So, but it's Open When. And it's actually based on a true life story in my daughter's life about writing letters to someone that you miss to encourage them to open when, like open when it's your birthday, open at 3 a.m. in the morning, or open when you're missing me, and open, you know, when you've got an A on a test, you know, you can send it to a college student kind of thing. So we wrote that about 2 summers ago in July, and then we didn't get it recorded until like last year in March. We had to wait for a little while to be able to do it, because financially there's a lot of money involved in putting music out. And so we finally got that recorded in March. It was launched in June last year, and it went to number 1 and 2 on the world and Euro charts, which is just so amazing. And then we've got a couple other songs that we've written that will be published, you know, as soon as we can get them recorded. The next song the girls did was Clearly, that came out in October, and that's gone straight up the charts as well. And that one was solely written by my oldest. And the one that we just got finished recording last week that is now ready for us to launch. Elizabeth wrote that one as well. And we're just super excited. So we're getting geared up to launch that song. And this song, it's called Breathe In, and it's about remembering who you are. So this song is going to be attached to a lot of different things, like a platform for special education, special needs and disabilities and challenges, and just, helping people to remember no matter how we came into this world, we're still okay. And that was the premise from my very first book that I wrote, Perfectly Precious Foolicious. The premise of it is no matter how a child comes into this world, because my little guy came in with challenges. He couldn't swallow when he was born, as well as other things. No matter how a child comes into this world, we look at them and we see perfection in that child. We see through what the world calls imperfection, right? Most of us do. There are still places in the world that don't, but for a lot of us, that's how we feel. And so this song that's going to be coming out soon, it encompasses that. God tells us to remember who we are. When we're having a bad day, when we feel like a failure, when the world tells us that, we're nothing or you're broken, just remember who you are, who you are inside your heart, and to slow down your life and just take a breath in. And so I'm really excited about it. And we are in the process actually of writing a song right now for Chris Golden, and I'm excited about. We're going to be pitching that to him. So, that this part of the world of my life is a lot of fun. Being creative is a lot of fun, and the rest of all of it is work.
That is amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm sure that some days you must pinch yourself, thinking of how things have worked out in your life, despite those difficulties and challenges that you've had to overcome, and you've certainly had your fair share of that. So it's wonderful that you have this one aspect in your life as a creative where things have worked out really, really well. Congratulations on that. Now, you're also a certified special needs and disabilities advocate. And everything, just listening to your story, everything seems to tie into each other in one form or another. So, basically people can reach out to you if they're wanting, can they reach out to you if they're wanting advice on getting published, if they're looking for a ghostwriter? And then just briefly tell us about your role as a certified special needs and disabilities advocate, and can people reach out to you for advice on that as well?
Yes, absolutely. I would love for people to reach out, on my author journey and my journey as an advocate, as a parent. There were times I felt very alone, didn't know where to go, didn't know what to do, who to turn to. And so it's, I feel like it's important to give back to people and to be there for information and resources for folks so they don't feel so lost in the world. I do get a lot of those questions from parents who have just had a child diagnosed. What do I do? Where do I go? Those kind of things. And I remember what that feels like, especially when you've never been exposed to the world of a child with needs. It can be very daunting. Parents go through a grieving process of feeling like it's their fault, or they feel like a failure, or their child is a failure. I mean, some people do look at their child like that, and so my journey for that began when, our journey as an advocate begins when we get pregnant with our child, because we have to feed ourselves well and take care of ourselves, and then take care of that baby inside us. And then once our baby comes out, we're the voice for our child. And then when you have a child with challenges, then it takes that up a notch for you. It's you have to learn a whole lot of stuff and information. And
very unfortunately, we're out of time.
Okay.
I would love to talk some more about this, but I think what we can do is in the comment section, we'll leave a note where people can reach out to you if they'd like someone to give them advice on ghostwriting, becoming a published author, and also on special needs and disabilities. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This was amazing. You were watching Books with Bridgetti, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you for joining us on Books with Bridgetti. Join us next time for industry experts and award-winning authors only on 100 TV.
All about